My husband looked me dead in the eyes and said, "I want the house, the cars, the business, everything." He didn't blink, he didn't stutter. He just sat there in his $3,000 suit, tapping his custom Montblanc pen against the mahogany table, waiting for me to cry, waiting for me to beg. He expected the woman he'd been married to for 14 years to fall apart. He expected the mother of his children to scream about fairness. But I didn't scream. I didn't flip the table. We were in Courtroom 3B of the Manhattan Supreme Court. The air tasted like old paper and lemon floor polish. It was the kind of silence that feels heavy, like the moments before a thunderstorm breaks. Donovan Croft, my husband, the man who had sworn to love me until death, was currently busy killing me. At least, that's what he thought he was doing. He was performing for the audience. To his left, his lawyer, a shark named Pierce with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, looked ready to pop a bottle of champagne. To his right, sitting in the gallery, was her, Chloe, 24 years old, an art gallery assistant who thought she had just won the lottery. She was trying to look invisible in a beige trench coat, but I saw her. I saw the way she watched Donovan, like he was a prize she had already unwrapped. "Well, Annalise?" Donovan whispered, his voice low and cruel. "Are we doing this? Or are you going to drag it out and lose even more?" I looked down at the document in front of me. It was thick, 80 pages of legal jargon that boiled down to one simple sentence: Donovan Croft gets it all. He was taking the penthouse overlooking the park. He was taking the Hamptons estate. But most importantly, he was taking Nexus Core Technologies, our company, the $50 million empire we built from a garage in Queens. "He wants 100% ownership," my lawyer Alistair whispered to me. His hand was shaking as he held his water glass. "Annalise, you can't sign this. He is leaving you with pennies. This is financial suicide." I looked at Alistair. He was terrified for me. He thought I was in shock. He thought I was a broken woman about to make the biggest mistake of her life. I looked back at Donovan. He was checking his watch. He looked bored. He had no idea that the ink in his pen was about to cost him his life. Not his life in the physical sense. That would be too easy. I'm talking about his freedom. I picked up my own pen. "Give it to him," I said. Alistair froze. "Excuse me?" "Give him the company," I said, my voice steady, loud enough for the judge to hear. "Give him the house. Give him full ownership. I want out. I want my name off everything. Today." Donovan's head snapped up. The boredom vanished, replaced by a flash of pure, greedy delight. He hadn't expected it to be this easy. He thought he'd have to fight me for months. Instead, I was rolling over. "Smart girl," he sneered. "Finally knowing your place." He grabbed the document. He didn't even read the final clause. He just wanted to see his signature on the line that said sole owner. He signed it with a flourish. A big, bold, arrogant signature. "Done," he said, tossing the pen down. "It's mine. The judge just needs to stamp it." The judge, a tired woman with gray hair, looked at me with pity. "Mrs. Croft, you understand that by signing this, you relinquish all liability and assets associated with Nexus Core?" "I do, Your Honor," I said. "Very well." The judge raised her gavel. Donovan turned to smirk at his mistress. He was already planning the celebration dinner. He was already spending the money. But as the gavel came down with a sharp crack, a different sound echoed from the back of the room. Boom! The double doors didn't just open, they slammed against the walls. Donovan jumped. We all turned. Standing in the doorway weren't bailiffs. They weren't reporters. They were 3 men in dark windbreakers with yellow letters emblazoned on the chest. FBI. And they weren't looking at me. They were looking right at the man who had just legally declared himself the sole owner of a criminal empire. Donovan's smile didn't just fade. It died. Hey, before we go any further, welcome to the Resilience Chronicles, where we share powerful stories of people who were dismissed, erased, and treated like they were invisible, until the day they made the world see them. If you're new here, this channel is all about resilience, revenge, and that beautiful moment when someone who built everything from the ground up finally takes back what was always theirs. Before we dive deeper, if you love stories where the underestimated genius gets the ultimate victory, do me a quick favor. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story like this. And if you're already part of the community, welcome back. Seriously, glad you're here. Now drop a comment below. Have you ever poured your heart and soul into something only to watch someone else take all the credit? What was the moment you realized your silence was being mistaken for weakness? All right, let's get back into the story. This is about Annalise, a woman who wrote every line of code, built every system, and created a $50 million empire from scratch, only to discover her husband called her pathetic, was sleeping with a 24-year-old, and was planning to frame her for federal crimes so he could walk away clean. But what he didn't know was that she was the architect of everything, including his downfall. And when she finally made her move, she didn't just leave him, she handed him the keys to his own prison cell. This is the story of a woman who let her husband steal her company, and then watched the FBI drag him out in handcuffs. Let's continue. To understand why I let him sign that paper, you have to understand who we were before the money. 14 years ago, Donovan wasn't a titan of industry. He was a guy in a cheap suit selling refurbished copiers. And I wasn't the quiet wife, I was the engine. We met at a coffee shop. I was coding on a laptop held together with duct tape. He spilled his latte on my table. He bought me a muffin to apologize. That was it. He was charming, loud, and full of big dreams. I was quiet, focused, and full of big ideas. We started Nexus Core in our living room. I wrote the code. I built the server architecture. I stayed up for 3 days straight to patch bugs before our first launch. Donovan? He was the face. He was the one who put on the suit and shook hands. He was the one who told the investors, I have a vision. He never said we. Even back then, if I listened closely, it was always I. I'm going to change the industry, Annalise. He'd tell me, not we. But I was in love. I was young. I thought we were a team. I thought he was the shield and I was the sword. I didn't care about the credit. I just wanted to build something real. As the company grew, so did the distance. It happened so slowly I didn't even notice I was being erased. First, it was the magazine interviews. Forbes called him the tech genius of the year. He didn't correct them. He didn't mention that his wife wrote the algorithm that made him rich. Then it was the office. He moved the headquarters to a glass tower in Midtown. He got the corner office with the view of the Hudson. My office was down the hall, smaller, near the server room. You like it quiet, right, babe? He said. You focus on the tech. Let me handle the heavy lifting. The heavy lifting turned out to be fancy dinners, weekend trips to conferences in Miami, and late nights where he wouldn't answer his phone. I became a ghost in my own company. The new employees didn't even know I was a co-founder. To them, I was just Donovan's wife, who sometimes stopped by the office. I told myself it was fine. We had millions in the bank. We had a beautiful son, Leo. We had the life everyone dreams of. But then came the change. About 6 months ago, Donovan stopped looking at me. I don't mean he stopped desiring me. I mean he stopped seeing me. I became a piece of furniture to him, a lamp in the corner, something he walked past on his way to greatness. He started locking his phone. He changed his passwords. He put a fingerprint lock on his home office door. He told me I was being paranoid. You've been home with Leo too long, Annalise, he said, laughing it off. You're imagining things. You need a hobby. A hobby. I built a $50 million company, and my husband told me I needed a hobby. That was the night the sadness turned into something else. It turned into suspicion. I didn't scream. I didn't ask to see his phone. I did what I do best. I went quiet. I went into architect mode. If there was a bug in the system, I was going to find it. I waited until he went on his next business trip to Chicago. I didn't follow him. I didn't hire a private investigator. I didn't need to. I walked into our home office. The door was locked, but Donovan forgot one thing. I set up the network security for this entire house. I didn't need a key. I needed an IP address. I sat down at his desk. I opened my laptop, and I started digging. I thought I was going to find proof of an affair. I thought I was going to find hotel receipts or texts to another woman. I did find those things. But that wasn't what made my blood run cold. What I found buried in a hidden folder on his private server wasn't just a betrayal of our marriage, it was a betrayal that could put us both behind bars for 20 years. Donovan wasn't just cheating on me, he was cheating the federal government, and he was using my code to do it. I stared at the screen, the blue light reflecting in my eyes. "Oh, Donovan," I whispered to the empty room. "You really have no idea who you're married to." That was the moment the wife died, and the architect woke up. I sat in the dark, the only light coming from the 3 monitors I had set up on the dining room table. The house was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator. Leo was asleep upstairs. Donovan was in Chicago. Or at least, that's where his calendar said he was. I wasn't looking for love letters. I was looking for data. Most wives check text messages. I checked server logs. I logged into the Nexus Core admin panel. Donovan thought he had locked me out months ago when he revamped security. He forgot that I wrote the backdoor admin access into the original kernel code back in 2011. It was my digital fingerprint, and he had no idea it existed. I bypassed his firewall in 30 seconds. I started scanning the financial transfers. At first, everything looked normal. Payroll, server costs, rent for the Midtown office. But then I saw it, a small crack in the glass, a transfer of $12,000. Not huge, but it was flagged as consulting fees. I clicked on it. The recipient was a company called Thorn Logistics LLC. I frowned. We didn't use outside logistics. We were a software company. We moved data, not boxes. I ran a search for Thorn Logistics. No website, no LinkedIn profile, just a registered address in Delaware. I kept digging. I filtered by Thorn. The screen populated with results. My stomach dropped. $12,000 in January, $25,000 in February, $50,000 in March. By May, the transfers were hitting $100,000 a month, all labeled as consulting, retainer, or MISC expenses. I did the math in my head. In the last year, Donovan had moved over $1.2 million of company money into this ghost corporation. "Who are you?" I whispered, staring at the name Thorn. I went into his email archives. I searched Thorn. Nothing. He had deleted them. So I went deeper. I went into the deleted items recovery folder on the server backend, the place where emails go before they are permanently scrubbed after 30 days. He had just cleared his inbox yesterday. The data was still there, hovering in digital purgatory. I restored a thread from 2 weeks ago. From Donovan to chloe.thorn@gmail.com. Subject: the setup. "Baby, don't worry about the transfer. I categorized it as R&D. The auditors won't look twice. The apartment is yours. Just sign the deed." My breath hitched. Chloe Thorn, the 24-year-old art assistant. The girl I had seen him talking to at the Christmas party. The one he swore was just the niece of a client. He wasn't just sleeping with her. He was buying her an apartment. And he wasn't paying for it with his salary. He was paying for it with Nexus core funds. That's embezzlement. That's theft. If the IRS audited us, they wouldn't see a cheating husband. They would see a company funneling pre-tax dollars into a personal asset. They would see fraud. And because my name was on the incorporation papers, they would see me as an accomplice. I leaned back in my chair, my hands trembling. He wasn't just breaking my heart. He was building a trap. And I was standing right in the middle of it. The next morning, I didn't confront him. When he called me from Chicago, I answered in my cheerful, mom voice. "Hey, honey, how's the conference?" I asked, stirring oatmeal for Leo. "Brutal," Donovan lied smoothly. "Meetings all day, I miss you guys." "We miss you too," I said. "Hurry home." I hung up and immediately went back to work. The embezzlement was bad, but as I dug deeper into the thorn rabbit hole, I found something that made the stolen million look like pocket change. I found a folder titled Project Icarus. It sounded like a joke, a bad spy movie title. But what was inside was terrifying. It wasn't about Chloe. It was about our stock. Nexus Core was preparing to go public next year. Our valuation was based on a new AI algorithm we were supposedly developing. Investors were pouring money in because Donovan promised them this AI would revolutionize the market. I opened the technical specs for Project Icarus. It was blank. There was no code. There was no algorithm. There was no product. Donovan had been selling vaporware. He had taken millions from venture capitalists for a technology that didn't exist. And then I saw the exit strategy. He had emails drafted to a competitor, Helix Systems. He was planning to merge with them before the IPO. He would sell Nexus Core for parts, cash out his stock options, and walk away with $50 million before anyone realized the AI was fake. But here was the kicker. The merger documents required 2 signatures, his and mine. He needed me to sign off on the sale. If I signed, I would be verifying that the technology was real. When the truth came out, and it always does, I would be the co-signer of a massive securities fraud. The SEC wouldn't just fine us, they would bury us. He was planning to divorce me after the sale. He wanted me to sign the fraud first, then dump me. That way, if the feds came knocking, he could point to my signature. He could say, "She was the CTO. She wrote the code. I just sold it. I didn't know it was fake." He was setting me up to be the fall guy. I stared at the screen, the blue light reflecting in my eyes. The man I loved. He wasn't just a liar. He was a sociopath. He was willing to send the mother of his child to federal prison to save his own skin. I closed the laptop. I walked into the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked tired. I looked scared. "No," I said to my reflection. "You don't get to be scared. You get to be smart." I wasn't going to sign those merger papers, but I couldn't just say no. If I said no, he would panic. He would destroy the evidence. He would find another way to frame me. I needed a different plan. I needed him to take the company before the sale. I needed him to be the only one holding the bag when the feds looked inside. I needed him to steal the company from me. "You want to do what?" Alistair Finch asked. He took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "I want to give him everything," I repeated. "The house, the accounts, and 100% of Nexus Core." Alistair looked at me like I had lost my mind. "Annalise, listen to me. I've been a divorce attorney for 30 years. You are the victim here. We have proof of adultery. We have proof of financial irregularities. We can crush him. We can get you 70% of the assets plus alimony." "If we fight for the assets," I said calmly, "we are fighting for dirty money." I slid a folder across his desk. "Read this." Alistair opened the folder. He scanned the documents I had printed. The fake AI specs. The emails to the competitor. The transfers to Chloe. His face went pale. He stopped reading halfway through. Jesus, he whispered. This is securities fraud. Annalise, this is 10 years minimum. Exactly, I said. Right now, I own 50% of that fraud. If we divorce normally and I fight for my share of the company, I am fighting to keep my share of a crime scene. When the SEC investigates, and I'm going to make sure they do, they will see that I fought to keep the company. That looks like guilt. Alistair sat back, stunned. So you want to divest? I don't just want to divest, I said. I want him to force me out. I want a court order, signed by a judge, stating that Donovan Croft demanded full control and that I surrendered it under duress. I want a legal document that draws a line in the sand. On this date, Annalise Croft left the building. Anything that happens after that, anything that is discovered, is his problem. Alistair was silent for a long time. He looked out the window. Then he looked back at me with a new kind of respect. It's a Trojan horse, he said softly. You're giving him the prize, knowing it's full of soldiers. He thinks the company is a gold mine, I said. He doesn't know it's a bomb. I just need to hand him the detonator and walk away before it goes off. It's risky, Alistair warned. If he suspects you know. He won't, I said. Because he thinks I'm weak. He thinks I'm just a heartbroken housewife who wants to run away from the pain. We're going to use his arrogance against him, Alistair. We're going to let him win. Alistair put his glasses back on. He pulled a legal pad toward him. Okay, he said. If we're going to do this, you have to be an Oscar-worthy actress. You have to let him bully you. You have to let him think he's robbing you blind. Can you do that? I thought about Donovan's smirk. I thought about Chloe's apartment. I thought about the fake AI. Watch me, I said. Living with the enemy is a special kind of hell. Donovan came back from Chicago 3 days later. He walked into the house with a bouquet of lilies, my least favorite flower, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Hey, babe, he said, kissing me on the cheek. He smelled like airplane air and another woman's perfume. Chanel No. 5. Expensive. Distinct. Welcome home, I said. My voice was small. I made sure my shoulders were slumped. I wore an old oversized sweater, no makeup. I needed him to see broken Annalise, not architect Annalise. For the next 2 weeks, our penthouse became a theater. At dinner, he would poke at me. You look tired, Annalise. Are you sleeping? You know, people are talking. They say you look unstable. Gaslighting. He was trying to paint a picture of me as the crazy, emotional wife. If I snapped, if I yelled, it would just prove his point. I'm just stressed, I whispered, pushing peas around my plate. Maybe you need a break, he suggested, pouring himself a glass of wine. Go to a spa. Leave the business stuff to me. You've never been good with the pressure anyway. I gripped my fork so hard my knuckles turned white. I built the pressure system, Donovan, I thought. You just learned how to turn the valve. But out loud, I said, maybe you're right. I don't know if I can handle it anymore. He smiled. It was a predator's smile. He sensed blood in the water. Every night, he went into his home office and locked the door. I knew what he was doing. He was moving more money. He was finalizing the fake merger documents. Every night, I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to him type. The sound of his keyboard was the sound of him digging his own grave. But I needed more than just digital logs. I needed physical proof. The FBI likes paper trails, but they love hard drives. I knew he kept a backup drive in the wall safe behind the painting in his office. He was paranoid about cloud storage being hacked. Ironic, right? I just needed 5 minutes alone in that room. But he never left it unlocked. And he never left his keys. Until Tuesday, the annual Tech Innovators Gala, the biggest night of the year. Usually, Donovan and I walked the red carpet together. The power couple. This year, he told me to meet him there. I have some pre-meetings, he texted. When I arrived, wearing a simple black dress, I saw why. Donovan was already there. And standing right next to him, laughing at something he said, was Chloe. She looked stunning in a red dress that cost more than my first car. She was holding his arm. Not in a business associate way, in a territorial way. I froze. He brought his mistress to our industry's biggest event. It was a public declaration. He was telling the world I was already gone. A few of our old friends looked at me with pity. "Annalise, you look, well?" one of them lied. I wanted to walk over there and throw my drink in his face. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell Chloe that her new apartment was bought with stolen money. But then I remembered the Trojan horse. "Let him win," Alistair had said. "Let him think he's untouchable." I took a deep breath. I walked over to them. Donovan saw me coming. He tensed up, ready for a fight. He wanted a scene. A public breakdown would be perfect for his custody battle. "Annalise," he said, his voice cold. "This is Chloe. She's interning with the marketing team." "Interning," I repeated. Chloe smirked. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Croft." I didn't glare, I didn't cry. I extended my hand. "Welcome to the team, Chloe," I said softly. "Donovan is a demanding boss. I hope you can keep up." Donovan blinked. He was confused. Where was the fire? Where was the jealousy? "I'm going to get a water," I said. "My head hurts. You two enjoy the night." I walked away. I felt Donovan's eyes on my back. He wasn't scared anymore. He was disappointed. He thought I had given up. Perfect. While he was busy showing off his new trophy, he made a mistake. A fatal one. I watched from across the room as he took off his suit jacket and draped it over a chair to go dance with Chloe. His jacket. With his keys in the pocket. I left the gala early. I told Donovan I was sick. He didn't care. "Go home," he texted. "I'll be late." I knew he would be late. He was with Chloe. I raced home. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I had maybe 2 hours before he came back. I had swiped his spare office key from his jacket pocket when I accidentally bumped into his chair on my way out. It was a sleight of hand I had practiced 100 times in my head. I ran into the house. No lights, just the moonlight cutting across the floor. I went straight to his office door. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped the key twice. Click. The door opened. I didn't turn on the light. I used the flashlight on my phone. I went to the painting of the ship on the wall, the Titanic, ironically, and swung it open. The safe. I knew the combination. It was his birthday. Narcissist. Beep. 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 Click. The safe swung open. It was stuffed with cash, passports. And there, sitting on top, was the black external hard drive. "NC backup secure." "Gotcha," I whispered. I pulled a USB cable from my pocket and plugged the drive into my laptop. I started the transfer. Copying. 10%. The progress bar moved painfully slow. It felt like time was melting. 30%. I heard a car door slam outside. I froze. I ran to the window. Headlights in the driveway. It was Donovan's Porsche. He was home early. 55%. Come on, I begged the screen. I heard the front door open downstairs. "Annalise?" His voice boomed. He sounded drunk. 75%. Heavy footsteps on the stairs. He was coming up. 90%. "Annalise, are you awake?" He was in the hallway. He was walking toward the bedroom. No, he was walking toward the office. He saw the light under the door. 99%. The doorknob turned. 100%. Complete. I yanked the drive out. I threw it in my pocket. I slammed the safe shut and swung the painting back just as the door flew open. Donovan stood there, swaying slightly. "What are you doing in here?" I spun around. I was holding a photo album I had grabbed from the shelf in a panic. I was looking for the photos of Leo, I stammered, tears springing to my eyes, real tears from the terror. From his first birthday, I just wanted to remember when we were happy. Donovan looked at the album. He looked at me, shivering in my pajamas. The suspicion in his eyes faded. It was replaced by pity and disgust. "You're pathetic," he muttered. "Go to bed, Annalise. Get out of my office." He turned and walked away. I waited until I heard his bedroom door close. Then I collapsed on the floor, clutching the hard drive in my pocket. I had the gun. Now I just needed to pull the trigger. The conference room felt less like a law office and more like a cage. Glass walls, cold air, and sitting across the table, the man who knew exactly how to hurt me. Donovan wasn't alone. He brought an army. 3 lawyers in sharkskin suits, all staring at me like I was prey. I sat with Alistair, my one defender, who looked tired and outgunned. "Let's make this quick," Donovan said, checking his Rolex. "I have a dinner reservation." He slid a single sheet of paper across the polished mahogany. It stopped right in front of my hands. "This is the offer," his lead lawyer, Pierce, said. His voice was smooth, like oil. "Donovan keeps the company. You keep the Hamptons house and a monthly stipend of $5,000 for 3 years." I stared at the paper. $5,000. Nexus Core generated $4 million a month in revenue. He was offering me crumbs. It wasn't just unfair. It was an act of war. "This is a joke," Alistair said, his voice rising. "Annalise is a co-founder. She owns 50% of the equity. We are entitled to $25 million, minimum." Donovan laughed. A sharp, cruel sound. "Equity?" He leaned forward, his eyes locking onto mine. "Annalise hasn't written a line of code in 5 years. She's a liability, not an asset. If you push for the company, Annalise, I promise you this. I will bankrupt us both in legal fees before I let you touch a single share." He meant it. I saw the darkness in his eyes. He would burn the kingdom to the ground just to be king of the ashes. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was the moment. The pivotal second where I had to make him believe the lie. I let my lip tremble. I let my shoulders slump. I forced the tears to well up in my eyes. "I can't," I whispered, my voice shaking. "I can't fight you anymore, Donovan." "Annalise, don't," Alistair warned, playing his part perfectly. "No." I stood up, knocking my chair back. "I'm done. I'm tired of the threats. I'm tired of being scared." I looked at Donovan. He looked surprised. Then, satisfied. "I don't want the company," I sobbed. "I don't want the stress. You win, okay? You win." A slow smile spread across Donovan's face. The predator had caught the rabbit. "I just want the cash," I said, wiping my face. "Give me the liquid savings account, $2 million, and you take the rest. You take the stock. You take the patent rights. You take everything." The room went dead silent. Pierce leaned in to whisper to Donovan, "Sir, we should be careful. Trading equity for cash this quickly is unusual. We should run a full audit before—" "Quiet," Donovan snapped. He wasn't listening to his lawyer. He was listening to his greed. He was doing the math in his head. He was getting a $50 million asset for the price of $2 million. It was the deal of the century. "You're serious?" Donovan asked, eyeing me. "I just want to leave," I lied. "I want to take Leo and go." Donovan sat back. He pulled out his expensive pen. "Done," he said. "Drop the papers, Pierce. She wants out? Let's let her out." He looked at me with pure triumph. He thought he had just pulled off the greatest heist of his career. He didn't notice that my hands weren't shaking anymore. He didn't see the cold calculation behind my tears. He was so busy grabbing the bait, he didn't see the hook. The final settlement agreement arrived 3 days later. It was a masterpiece of legal entrapment. Alistair had drafted the specific clauses, buried deep in the definitions section, but Donovan's team was so focused on the assets they barely glanced at the liabilities. Clause 14b. The transferee, Donovan Croft, assumes sole and absolute liability for all corporate actions, debts, regulatory compliance, and financial obligations of Nexus Core Technologies, retroactively to the date of incorporation. In plain English, if the company broke the law, it's Donovan's problem. I sat at my kitchen table, the document in front of me. This was it. The point of no return. If I signed this, I was walking away from my life's work. I was giving up the potential millions, but I was also buying my freedom. My phone buzzed. A text from Donovan. Lawyers sent the papers. Sign them by noon or the deal is off. Don't test me. He was impatient. He wanted to close the merger with Helix Systems next week. He needed me gone so he could cash out. I picked up my pen. My hand shook, but not from fear, from adrenaline. I signed. I scanned the pages. I emailed them to Alistair. It's done, I whispered. 10 minutes later, I got a notification. Donovan had countersigned. The trap was shut. He was now the sole owner of a criminal enterprise. And he had no idea. Now came the execution. The FBI doesn't just act on rumors. They need a roadmap. I had spent the last 48 hours compiling the black binder. It contained everything. The bank transfer logs to Thorn Logistics, the emails between Donovan and Chloe, the Project Icarus file proving the AI was fake, the draft merger agreement with Helix Systems, and most importantly, a copy of the divorce settlement he had just signed, proving he claimed 100% ownership of the fraud. I didn't put my return address on the envelope. I didn't need credit. I needed results. I had addressed it to Special Agent Miller, the head of the white-collar crime division in the New York field office. I found his name in an article about a similar bust last year. I stood in front of the mailbox on the corner of 5th and Main. The rain was soaking my hair. I looked at the envelope. It felt heavy. It contained the destruction of my husband, the father of my child. A moment of hesitation flickered in my chest. Was I really doing this? Was I really sending him to prison? Then I remembered the way he looked at me at the gala. I remembered the text to Chloe about the setup. I remembered that he was planning to let me take the fall. He fired first. I was just returning fire. I opened the mailbox. I dropped the envelope inside. Thump. It was gone. I turned and walked away. The rain felt good. It felt like it was washing me clean. The clock was ticking. The court hearing to finalize the divorce, the ceremonial rubber stamp, was in 2 days. That was where the FBI would make their move. Publicly. Irrefutably. Donovan thought he was walking into a coronation. He was walking into an execution. The morning of the court hearing arrived with a heavy gray sky. On the other side of town, I knew what Donovan was doing. He was celebrating. He had probably uncorked a vintage Dom Perignon. He was putting on his best Italian suit, the navy one with the pinstripes. He was telling Chloe that today was Independence Day. In my small rental apartment, it was quiet. I stood by the window, watching the rain streak the glass. I wore a simple navy dress. Armor. I checked my phone. No messages. The FBI doesn't text you to say we're coming. They don't give you a status update. For the last 48 hours, I had lived in a state of suffocating suspense. Did Agent Miller get the package? Did he believe it? Was he building a case? Or did he toss my black binder into a trash can? If I walked into that courtroom today and the doors didn't open, I would be signing away my life for nothing. Donovan would walk free with my company, and I would be left with nothing but regret. Alistair called. The car is downstairs. I'm coming, I said. I grabbed my purse. I checked the mirror one last time. Game face, I whispered. The ride to the courthouse was a blur. My stomach was in knots. Every siren I heard made me jump. Is that them? We pulled up to the courthouse steps, and there he was, Donovan, standing on the steps like a politician, surrounded by his legal team. He looked radiant. He saw me and waved, a mocking, cheerful wave. "Morning, sunshine," he called out. "Ready to sign?" I walked past him. I didn't look at him. If I looked at him, I might vomit. Or I might punch him. "Let's just get this over with," I said. We walked into the building. The metal detectors beeped. The guards waved us through. We got into the elevator. The doors slid shut, trapping us together. "You're doing the right thing, Annalise," Donovan said, his voice dripping with condescension. "You were never cut out for the big leagues. You're going to be much happier living a simple life." I stared at the floor numbers lighting up. 1, 2, 3. "You have no idea," I thought. "The big leagues just came for you." Ding. The doors opened on the third floor. Courtroom 3B was at the end of the hall. It looked like just another door. But I knew better. It was the mouth of the trap. And we were walking right in. We are back where we started. But now you know the stakes. You know that the pen in Donovan's hand isn't just a writing instrument. It's the detonator. "Mr. Croft," the judge said, peering over her glasses, "you have reviewed the addendum? You understand that you are assuming full corporate liability?" Donovan waved his hand dismissively. "Yes, Your Honor, it's standard. I built the company. I take the responsibility." He said it with such pride. "I take the responsibility." He signed. The scratch of the nib on the paper sounded like a scream in the quiet room. He pushed the papers toward the center of the table. "Done. It's mine." He turned to me. "Well, Annalise, it's been educational." He stood up to leave. He buttoned his jacket. He turned his back on me. And that was when the world exploded. Boom! The double doors at the back of the room flew open. It wasn't a polite entrance. It was a raid. 3 agents. Badges on their belts. Guns on their hips. The lead agent, a tall woman with eyes like flint, stepped into the aisle. "Donovan Croft!" she barked. Donovan froze. He spun around. "Who the hell are you?" "Special Agent Miller, FBI," she said, holding up a warrant. "You are under arrest." Donovan laughed. It was a nervous, confused sound. "Arrest? For what? Parking tickets?" "For securities fraud, wire fraud, and 17 counts of money laundering." The air left the room. Donovan's face went from confusion to terror in a split second. He looked at his lawyer. Pierce was already backing away, putting distance between himself and his client. "This is a mistake," Donovan shouted, his voice cracking. "I didn't. You can't." "We have the bank records, Mr. Croft," Agent Miller said, closing the distance. "We have the emails to Thorn Logistics. And thanks to the document you just signed," she pointed to the table, "we have your confession that you are the sole owner responsible for these crimes." Donovan looked at the papers. Then he looked at me. The realization hit him like a physical blow. His knees actually buckled. He saw it. He saw the Trojan horse. "Annalise?" he whispered. I stood up. I picked up my purse. I walked over to him, standing just outside the reach of the agents who were now grabbing his arms. "You wanted the credit, Donovan," I said softly. "You wanted to be the man who did it all." The handcuffs clicked. "Chuck! Now you are." He screamed my name as they dragged him out. It wasn't anger. It was the sound of a man watching his life burn to ash. I watched him go. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. I felt light. The aftermath wasn't a party. It was a process. While Donovan was being processed in holding, I was sitting in a witness room down the hall. Agent Miller came in. She held a cup of coffee. "He's talking," she said. "He's trying to blame everyone, his accountant, his partner, you." I took a sip of water. I figured he would. He told us you knew, Miller said, watching me closely. He said you were the mastermind. He can say whatever he wants, I replied calmly. But the paperwork says otherwise. He signed an affidavit stating he was the sole decision-maker, and your forensic timeline will show that my access was revoked months ago. Miller smiled. A small, tight smile. We saw the Thorn transfers, she said. And we found the backup drive you mailed us. It was very thorough. You did our job for us, Mrs. Croft. I just want to make sure the truth didn't get lost, I said. He's going away for a long time, Miller said. The fraud is massive. Investors lost millions. But because you came forward, and because you surrendered your equity before the indictment. She slid a paper across the table. You're a cooperating witness. You're clear. I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for 6 months. What about the mistress? I asked. Chloe? Miller laughed. We picked her up at the airport. She was trying to board a flight to Tulum. She flipped on him in 5 minutes. She gave us the passwords to the offshore accounts. It was over. The house of cards had collapsed. I stood up. Can I go? You're free to go, Miller said. I walked out of the police station. The rain had stopped. The sun was breaking through the clouds, reflecting off the wet pavement. I hailed a cab. Where to? The driver asked. I thought about it. I didn't have a company anymore. I didn't have a husband. I was starting from zero. Forward, I said. Just drive forward. The fall of a titan is loud. It echoes. For the next 3 months, my life was a blur of headlines. Donovan Croft was everywhere. His mugshot, looking pale, tired, and stripped of his arrogance, was plastered on every news site. The man who wanted to be famous finally got his wish. He was the most famous fraud in America. The details came out in waves. The fake AI, the embezzlement, the betrayal. The public devoured it. They called him the Wolf of Midtown. They analyzed his suits, his interviews, his smile. They dissected the way he lied with such ease. But the story had a twist they didn't expect. Me. The press tried to paint me as the victim, the betrayed wife, the woman left behind. I refused to give interviews. I refused to go on talk shows and cry for the cameras. I stayed silent. Meanwhile, the empire crumbled. The SEC froze Nexus Corp's assets. The stock, which Donovan had valued at $50 million, became worthless overnight. The office towers were emptied. The logo was stripped from the building. The investors who had been so charmed by Donovan were now suing him for everything he had. They took the penthouse. They took the Hamptons estate. They took the cars. Even Chloe's apartment, the one bought with stolen funds, was seized by the feds. She was cooperating with the prosecution, trading her testimony for a lighter sentence. She testified that Donovan had laughed about tricking me. She told the jury how he called me yesterday's news. Her testimony didn't hurt me. It vindicated me. Every word she spoke proved that my Trojan horse wasn't malice. It was self-defense. Donovan eventually took a plea deal. He couldn't face a jury. He pleaded guilty to 14 counts of fraud. The judge, the same one who had finalized our divorce, sentenced him to 12 years in federal prison. 12 years. He would miss Leo's graduation. He would miss the next decade of technology. He would miss the world moving on without him. I went to the sentencing. I sat in the back row. When the judge read the sentence, Donovan didn't look at his lawyer. He didn't look at the press. He turned around and looked for me. His eyes were hollow. He looked smaller. The suit didn't fit him anymore. He mouthed one word to me. Why? I just looked at him. I didn't hate him anymore. I just felt a profound sense of closure. I stood up, buttoned my coat, and walked out of the courtroom before the bailiff even finished speaking. I didn't need to answer him. He knew why. It's been a year since the doors opened. I didn't retire. I didn't move to an island. That's not who I am. I'm an architect. I build things. I started a new company, Phoenix Logic. It's small. We have 12 employees. We don't have a glass tower. We work out of a converted warehouse in Brooklyn. We don't have venture capital funding. I used my savings, the clean money I fought to keep, to bootstrap it. And we don't have a face. We have a team. I code every day. I sit with the junior developers and debug their scripts. I make the coffee. We are building cybersecurity software to help companies detect embezzlement, internal fraud, the kind of cracks in the glass that I found on that dark night in my kitchen. It's poetic, I think. I took the worst experience of my life and turned it into a shield for others. Leo is doing well. He's 10 now. He asks about his dad sometimes. We visit him once a month. It's hard, but I tell Leo the truth. Dad made mistakes. Big ones. And now he has to pay for them. Leo understands fairness. Kids always do. Alistair came by the office yesterday. He brought a bottle of wine to celebrate our first profitable quarter. You know, he said, looking around at the busy office, you could have taken half of Nexus Core. You could have fought for the money. I know, I said. Do you regret it? He asked, walking away from the millions. I looked at my team. I looked at the code running on the screens. Clean, honest, real code. I looked at my reflection in the window. I didn't see a victim. I saw a survivor. Alistair, I said, smiling. Donovan thought the money was the asset. He thought the building was the company. I tapped my head. He forgot that I was the asset. He took the shell. I kept the engine. That is the lesson I want you to take from this. When someone tries to steal your life, let them take the things. Let them take the credit. Let them take the noise. But never let them take your mind. Never let them take your integrity. Because things can be replaced. Empires can be rebuilt. But once you sell your soul, you can never buy it back. My name is Annalise. I was a billionaire's wife. Now, I'm just the architect. And I'm just getting started. So what do you think? Did Annalise handle this the right way? Or did she go too far? Should she have just fought for her half in court? Or did Donovan deserve everything he got? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely want to hear your take on this. The lesson here? Never mistake silence for ignorance. Never mistake patience for weakness. And never, ever underestimate the person who built the entire system you're standing on. Because the person who wrote the code, designed the architecture, and knows where every digital body is buried, that's the person who truly holds the power. Donovan thought he was the visionary. He thought he was the genius. He thought Annalise was just a quiet wife he could erase from her own company. But he forgot one simple truth. You can't steal from the architect without them knowing exactly which walls to collapse. And when they finally pull the lever, you don't get a warning. You get handcuffs. If this story hit home for you, do me a favor. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded of their own power today. Someone who's been building empires while someone else takes the credit. Someone who's been called unstable when they're just exhausted from carrying everything alone. Send them this story. And if you want more stories about people who were underestimated, overlooked, and written off, until they took their power back in the most brilliant ways possible, click the next video on your screen right now. I'll see you in the next one. Stay resilient.